It's 2015, and Star Wars The Force Awakens just came out, and it was received really well by most audiences. Sure, some people didn't like it, but for the most part the reactions were positive. Rogue One came out the next year, and was met with equally, if not better, reactions from just the general audiences and Star Wars fans. But then The Last Jedi comes out and just kind of throws a wrench into the whole thing. Now the whole fan base is kind of just split into two parts, and Disney just kind of goes into panic mode because they got all these angry fans yelling at them. So they rush out the Rise of Skywalker, they bring back J.J. Abrams, they try to do a bunch of things to appease the fans, and what they end up doing is making a movie that nobody likes. So what can we learn from this? Hello, it is I, IR Smart, and for years there's been this rhetoric among Star Wars fans that Disney just ruined it. Disney just ruined everything. They're the ones to blame for why Star Wars is the way it is today. And I just don't really think that's the case. One of the main things I always hear is that they need to listen to the fans more. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that they do listen to the fans a lot, and that's not always a good thing. And I think what a lot of Star Wars fans don't realize is that there is a big problem with how Star Wars fans, demands content from Disney, and what that really does to the quality of the content we get. I'm going to just kind of get into all of that in this video. So in this we'll be talking about Star Wars fans, and just the state of Star Wars as a whole. Now I want to make something clear. I don't like Disney. I don't think they're that great of a company. I think they make a lot of bad decisions. But I don't think they've absolutely ruined Star Wars the way people think it is. I think they've given us some actually pretty good Star Wars products. Not just movies and shows, but the games and some other things as well. We've had it pretty good under Disney, even if they made a lot of weird, bad decisions. When I watched Star Wars for the first time, it was about 2014, right before Force Awakens came out. And I watched the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy. I prefer the original trilogy more, personally. But I just liked both of them. I thought they were good. It was, hey, Star Wars. Then I watched the sequel trilogy and all that. So my point in telling you that is I don't really have a nostalgia. I think a lot of people my age grew up with the prequels, so there's a very strong bias for that online, which really contrasts with the sequel trilogy, which is new. So I just want to say I don't have that bias for really either trilogy. I personally prefer the original trilogy just because I think it's better, but I don't really have a bias towards any Star Wars trilogy specifically. I really like all of them. But back to my main point, I want to show you my point, what I'm talking about here, by comparing different Star Wars shows and movies, and looking at why they were made and how the final product turned out. First up is Rogue One, a movie I personally love and I know is very popular in the Star Wars community. Most people you ask them, they're going to say they like Rogue One. This is because Rogue One is a really good movie. But if you think about it, was this a movie fans were asking for? When Disney took over Star Wars, were fans asking, we need a movie about the rebels stealing the Death Star plans? You know that one little line in New Hope in the opening crawl? We need a movie about that. No one was asking for this movie, but it turned out really good. Because it didn't rely on pre-existing characters, it made totally new characters, and it brought up a whole new story that fit well into Star Wars, but it wasn't like forced. It wasn't like something that had to happen. It was a new, fresh idea. I think that's why Rogue One works so well. It's because it's new, it's fresh, but with the original feel of Star Wars. But you contrast that with something like the Kenobi series. So many fans were asking for years after Disney took over, we need Ewan McGregor back as Obi-Wan Kenobi. Imagine a series with Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. There'd be so much interesting to explore his sadness and his pain as he transitions into the more Alec Guinness Obi-Wan of the original trilogy. That was a really interesting idea, and maybe people will just say, oh, it's just Disney, it's their fault, they ruined it, it was a good idea, they ruined it. But at the end of the day, I don't really think it was that great of an idea, because what you have is just Obi-Wan, and he's in a desert, but he can't really do anything. He can fight Vader, but we know neither of them die, so what do we really do? Both of them have to stay alive during the series, but also Vader can't go to Tatooine. So it just creates so many problems. We have to get Obi-Wan off Tatooine, and we have to bring in Leia because we can't get Luke into this. So it just creates all these problems that really just made the series not work. And I think that's part of the problem, is there were so many fan expectations and demands for a Kenobi series, so they kind of just tried to make something with what they were given, and they really had too many limitations. They didn't have much writer's freedom. They had to work in a very confined space. So what we ended up getting was a not very good series. Here's another example. Was anyone asking for a series about a lone gunslinger bounty hunter? No, but everyone loves The Mandalorian, right? The Mandalorian, who asked for a series about that? It was just such a random idea out of nowhere, and it just worked so well because it was new, fresh. They brought up a new character and a bunch of other new things without relying on pre-existing stuff like Obi-Wan Kenobi. It relied more on its own strength as a show. Now I get it, everyone hates it after season 3, but you gotta remember this show is very popular in its first and second seasons especially. Now, compare this to the book of Boba Fett, which is kind of a spin-off of The Mandalorian. Now, you see, Boba Fett was an insanely popular character, ever since the 80s, right? When he was first introduced. People are like, oh, Boba Fett's so cool. He's this ruthless bounty hunter. And he was just perceived as this cool guy. And then George just threw him in the Sarlacc pit and killed him off. And everyone was like, what the heck? We were wanting to see, this cool Boba Fett character. So for years, people were, like, oh, maybe he survived. Boba Fett's such a ruthless bounty hunter. He's so cool. He probably escaped and, got out of the Sarlacc pit and got revenge. But, that never really happened. So when Disney took over, they were like, oh, imagine now that Disney's in control, they're going to give us new Star Wars things. We get a story about Boba Fett. Wouldn't that be great? But the thing is, they did this. They made a show about Boba Fett. They showed him escaping the Sarlacc pit. But people complained so much afterwards, which is just so strange to me. It's like, they gave the fans exactly what they want, which was Boba Fett escaping the Sarlacc pit. But still, they complained, oh, well, he didn't do it the way I wanted to. He just kind of crawled out of it. I wanted him to blow up with explosions and all stuff. And it's just, I think this really highlights that these fans that have these expectations, there's really no way to please anyone. There's really no way Disney can possibly do that. So when you have fan expectations, there's no way you're going to meet that. So I just ask, why even try them? Why try to make all these expectations? Just let the fans, have their, imaginary way. Just leave Boba Fett the way he was. Have fans come up with their own explanations as to how he got up. But when you show it, then that just becomes the explanation. And it's not going to make everyone happy. I think that's why they should focus more on making new things, like Rogue One, The Mandalorian. And my next example, Andor. Because again, who asked for a show about Cassian Andor? Right? Everyone loves Rogue One, right? It's such a great show. But of all the characters to make a spin-off show about it, Cassian? Really? That pilot guy? He really wasn't even that interesting just in his own movie, in Rogue One. So, to make a series about him was a really weird decision, I thought. And I didn't really know what to expect going into it. But it turned out to be the darn best Star Wars show we've ever gotten. And I will still stand by that. Andor is amazing. I have a poster right here of how much I love it. So, Andor was just incredible. And I mean, Tony Gilroy, right? He created such a great series. But he was just given this freedom to write a good character, give him a good story. He's given the time to develop a good series without really any expectations. There's nowhere, all we really know is that Cassian Andor had to die at the Battle of Scarif. That's really the only limitation they had in this character. But other than that, they had total freedom to write whatever they wanted, which is why that series is so strong, because the writers had the freedom. Another thing I'd like to mention is that Rian Johnson was pretty much given total creative freedom for The Last Jedi. I think this can also be an example of what happens when it goes too far, when you give the writers too much freedom, because he made some really bad decisions, along with some good ones. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of things I love about this movie. Like, for example, like the scene with Yoda. That's an incredible scene. The scene where, Luke and Rey discuss the Jedi and how they fell. There's a ton of great scenes. Or the final scene where Luke confronts Kylo Ren. There's a lot of great moments in this movie, but some of the decisions were just not very good for the whole trilogy as a whole. For example, he kind of just, oh, Snoke killed him off. Now there's no main villain for the next movie. Luke killing him off. The movie pretty much ends on a note where there's really nowhere left for the story to go. This is a big reason why The Rise of Skywalker was so bad, because the previous movie just didn't set it up very well. So while I think there were some great things in this movie, it still ends up being a pretty not great movie because of all those decisions, and because Disney kind of just let Rian go too far in a few places. But it's because of that huge fan outcry that Disney tried to course correct so hard with The Rise of Skywalker. If you look at so many things that they did, it was really just a last-ditch effort to try and appease these fans. They're like, oh, Palpatine, he's a fan favorite character, let's bring him back. Oh, people are complaining that Rey didn't have enough training. We're going to have a whole sequence at the beginning showing her training with Leia. Look at that, guys, she's training now. This is what you wanted? Oh, you didn't like Rose? You don't like the character Rose? Guess what? She gets to do nothing in this movie. Because screw Kelly Marie Tran. Like, seriously though, why did we screw over Kelly Marie Tran that hard? She was good. She was a good actress. They just gave her terrible material and then left her to do nothing. Really a shame. Really a darn shame. Another example where just trying to appeal to the fans isn't going to work. So I ask why. Why should Disney try? I think what Disney should do is they should more focus on creating products and stories that aren't going to have to meet fan expectations. Create good stories, without anyone's expectations. We have things coming up like the Ahsoka series, and I guess Thrawn's going to be coming back, and all this thing, we're going to have a Thrawn movie, Heir to the Empire, whatever. It's just, there's going to be so many expectations. When you say stuff like that, when you say Heir to the Empire, there's all those Legend fans that are going to have very high expectations. And there's really no possible way you're going to meet those. So why try? I know, don't get me wrong, do it or not, there is no try. But I think this is a case where there is no try. Because you're never going to meet those expectations. So I think Disney should focus more on things like The Acolyte, or that movie about the birth of the Jedi. These projects we know next to nothing about because they can rely on new characters and new stories that aren't going to be bogged down by all the old canon stuff. That is where Star Wars is at its best, I think. And that's, I think, the direction Disney needs to go. So let me know what you thought. I think this is where Disney should go with their stories, focusing more on new characters, new stories, rather than just keeping going with the same, oh, another season of The Mandalorian, another season of whatever. Just make new things, new stories. The Star Wars galaxy is so vast with so much potential. But if we just keep doing the same things over and over, just another, Empire versus Rebel story, it's just, it can get old. So I think what we gotta really do is focus more on new characters, new stories. It can still have the same Star Wars feel, but it's gotta be different. So to the fans who always just say, oh, it's Disney's fault, they ruined everything, I think it really is those fans that are also partially to blame. Because such the large fan backlash to Star Wars is part of the problem. That's, why is it that every new Star Wars thing comes out, fans are just like, it's Disney, it's gonna be terrible. Like, that's not good. That's not gonna help. And every new Star Wars project that comes out, there's immediately someone saying, oh, it's gonna be terrible. Oh, it's gonna be horrible. Like, when the Rey movie was announced, you should have seen all the YouTube videos just saying, oh, this is gonna be horrible, it's gonna be bad, blah, blah. Like, give it a chance, guys, come on. So anyway, those are all my thoughts, kind of just whoosh, another video where I just throw out all my opinions on Star Wars, and just talk about it as a whole. My voice was kind of sore in this video, I don't know if you could hear that. But anyway, on new setup, I'd like to talk about that for a minute, if you have it. So new setup, I moved some things around in my room. I used to be facing that wall, well, the desk was here, and I would be looking at you from here, but behind me would be that wall. I've moved things, now you're facing this wall. Alright, I'm here. I got some nice stuff on my desk. I got these new Lego sets to show off. They're very cool. I'm very proud of these. Like, you got Emperor's Throne Room. Very nice. I got this on sale at Barnes & Noble. This was a great deal. Do you have any idea how annoying it was to place all the green tiles? It was very annoying. I got my Star Wars bucket. It's a popcorn bucket. It doesn't have any popcorn in it because I ate it all. But it's got the original trilogy on it. It's a very cool popcorn bucket. And my little Death Star thing. And the Andor poster. I got this from the IMAX re-release for Rogue One. And then this is a Star Wars poster. I had it up on this wall for years. You could just never see it. So, very cool poster. I like this one a lot. Doesn't have any sequel characters, but that's because it came up before the sequels. So, some people might say it's better. I think it's okay. Anyway, yeah, that's the end of the video. Hope you all enjoyed. Thanks for just sticking around to the end. You guys who stick around to the end, you're the real ones. So, see you in the next video. Bye.